You probably like to think that you're a good person. You go about your life doing good deeds, helping around the house, taking out the rubbish and washing up the dishes. At school or at work, you notice those who are less fortunate than yourself. You do your best to support them, to make sure that they feel seen. You are a model member of this great thing that we call society. But every so often, you have a strange thought. What if I just flipped over this table? What if I stole that Rolo yogurt that somebody left in the fridge? What if I delicately kicked the ankle of the person in front of me so that they went sprawling to the floor? Where do these intrusive thoughts come from? Are they a sign that perhaps you're not the good person you thought you were? But, you say, I don't act on these impulses. They pass through my head and then they disappear like a whisper in the wind. I might think them, but they are simply thoughts. They're not actions, they're ideas. Perhaps good and evil simply exists within us all. It's part of the fabric of man. This is a duality that the wonderful Victorian novelist Robert Louis Stevenson grapples with so perfectly in his timeless novel, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And in this video, I'm going to make sure that by the end, you've covered everything that you need to know to succeed, whether that's in the classroom, an essay, or even just at a dinner table with friends. So, without keeping you any longer, let's get into it. Before we get into it, I just want to remind you we have an incredible free resource. It's a fantastic essay scaffold. All you need to do is click the link in the description, enter your details, and we'll send that right to you. Now, let's get into the video. Section 1, Plot. We start with the story of the door. Mr. Utterson and his friend Enfield are on a walk when they see a sinister blistered door. Enfield recounts seeing a shrunken, detestable man named Mr. Hyde trample a young girl there and pay off her family with a cheque signed by the respectable Dr. Henry Jekyll. In search for Mr. Hyde, Utterson, who manages Jekyll's will, is haunted by the fact that if Jekyll disappears, Hyde inherits everything. He stakes out the door until he finally meets Hyde. The interaction is chilling. Hyde is hiss-like and snarled aloud in a savage laugh. When Utterson questions Jekyll about it in Dr. Jekyll Was Quite at Ease, the doctor pales and begs Utterson to let the matter drop, promising he can be rid of Hyde whenever he chooses. A year passes. In the Carew murder case, a maid witnesses Hyde brutally beating an elderly MP, Sir Danvers Carew, to death with a cane. It's a brutal and violent murder that shocks London to its core. In Incident of the Letter, Jekyll looks deadly sick. He shows Utterson a letter from Hyde saying he has fled. However, Utterson's clerk notices that the handwriting is almost identical to Jekyll's, just slanting the other way. By a remarkable incident of Dr. Lanyon, Hyde has vanished and Jekyll briefly returns to his old social self. But suddenly, Jekyll shuts everyone out again. Their mutual friend, Dr. Lanyon, dies of pure shock, leaving a letter for Utterson marked not to be opened until the death or disappearance of Dr. Henry Jekyll. In Incident at the Window, Utterson and Enfield see Jekyll sitting at a window looking like a prisoner. They watch in horror as his face suddenly transfigures with an expression of abject terror and despair before he slams the window shut. The climax arrives in The Last Night. Jekyll's butler, Paul, visits Utterson, terrified. He says a stranger is holed up in Jekyll's lab, crying out for a specific salt. They break the door down with an axe and they find the body of Hyde twitching on the floor, having committed suicide. Jekyll is nowhere to be found. The final two chapters are epistolary. It means that they're told through letters. Dr. Lanyon's narrative reveals the shock that killed him. He actually saw Hyde drink a potion and transform into Jekyll. Finally, Henry Jekyll's full statement of the case gives us the why. Jekyll explains that he felt split between his professional reputation and his secret vices. He created the potion to separate the two, and initially it was a release, but Hyde, who is the embodiment of this repressed evil, began to take over, transforming spontaneously without the drug. When the salt for the potion ran out, Jekyll knew that he was doomed to become Hyde permanently, leading to the tragic end we found in the lab. To return for a moment to my opening monologue, this is the duality that Stevenson believed exists within us all. In many ways, we are all Jekyll, we are all Hyde. Of course, that doesn't mean that we are all destined to commit violent acts or transform in some hellish way to a garish approximation of man. Rather, that evil, whatever form it may take, is always there, bubbling beneath the surface. And there was no time more fascinated with inherent morality than the rapidly changing Victorian era, as we are about to see. Section 2, Context. To understand this book, you have to understand 1880s London. But first, I want you to consider something. Consider the way that I'm speaking to you right now, through a screen. You at home, or on the bus, or on a train, or even an aeroplane. You're most likely warm with central heating. As the sun sets, you turn on a light, illuminating your room. You notice a sudden thirst and head downstairs, you open the fridge and you grab a Rubicon. Or, if you're feeling healthy, you turn on the tap and fresh, clean water comes rushing out. It's easy to take for granted all the modern conveniences, the modern technologies that surround us. I'm delivering this in 2026 and really, I think nothing of turning on my camera, recording this video and uploading it to the internet. It's normal. But for the Victorians, where scientific advancement and technological development was in a very nascent stage, there was real skepticism, confusion, and even outright admonishment for those who were presenting what would eventually become the basis of an entirely new way of living. Think of the Victorians as existing in the middle of two ways of thinking. The first, a very traditional, conservative, religious mindset, with a Christian God at the center of it all. You were born, christened, you went to church, you did your best to be a good Christian, and when you died, you ascended into heaven to live amongst the angels. And then on the other side was a radical new way of thinking, driven by scientific discovery, a world where science was beginning to answer the questions that had originally only been answered by priests. What did this new world mean for the beliefs of the old? Could they slowly disappear? And if they did, what would that do to the very fabric of society? As you can imagine, it was a time of massive tension, politically, socially, and of course, in the world of religion. So where did this all begin? Well, the answer to that question could be a whole other video in itself. So let me just give you 3 things to consider and the way that they link to Jekyll and Hyde. In 1859, Charles Darwin published The Origin of Species. In this seismic work, Darwin introduced the scientific theory that populations evolve over the course of generations through a process of natural selection. In one fell swoop, he challenged the Christian belief in creationism, the idea that God created man, the animals, and all of the creatures on Earth. It was a sensation, the kind of writing that changes the world, a line in the sand with a clear before and after. The theory of evolution made Victorians terrified that they were simply beasts in top hats. If, they pondered, we evolved from apes, then what proof is there that the ape does not still exist within us? In the novel, you'll note that Hyde is often described using words like troglodytic and ape-like, clearly reflecting this Victorian obsession with de-evolution. With theories of inner animals swashbuckling around the noodles of Victorian gentlemen and Victorian ladies, these men and women went about their day with a new kind of worry. You see, Victorian society was obsessed with reputation. The way people perceived you in the world was the basis of your whole existence. A small word against you could end your career, your social standing, even your life. However, what you did in private was entirely another matter. So long as nothing emerged in public, you were free to act as you wished. The Victorian era, ironically, was an era of excessive vice, opium dens, rampant violence, seedy underbellies of prostitution and alcoholism, all of this existing beneath a very demure, a very proper, a very conservative public life. As such, Hyde represents the true Victorian, a person who in public is a veritable Jekyll, but in private is living a very different kind of life. And lastly, on the back of the theories like Darwin's, there was a growing fear that science was overstepping its bounds. Just think, in the 19th century you have Michael Faraday discovering electromagnetic induction, proving electricity could be generated by magnetic fields, a principle for motors and generators. In 1876 you have Alexander Graham Bell inventing the telephone. And in 1863 the London Metropolitan Railways opened, becoming the world's first urban underground railway. It's no surprise that Victorians were frightened about such rapid development. Only a century before, people were confined to horse and cart. Now they're hurtling underground. Victorians started to wonder, are we going too fast? Are we playing God? And that's exactly what Jekyll does in his lab. So, who exactly was Jekyll? Well, let's take a look at the characters. Section 3, Characters. The double is the heart of this book. Dr. Henry Jekyll, he isn't pure good. He's a respected doctor who is frustrated by the strict social rules of the time. He creates Hyde because he wants to indulge in his vices without ruining his reputation. He is the epitome of the Victorian gentleman, someone who can be trusted and looked upon for advice and guidance, someone who is held in high esteem. He throws dinner parties and makes jokes. But from a young age, he couldn't help but feel that within him existed another person, a darker person, someone malevolent and strange. And who is that person? Mr. Edward Hyde. He is Jekyll's pure evil distilled. Interestingly, he is smaller and younger than Jekyll because Jekyll's evil side hasn't been exercised as much. He is violent and beastly, completely devoid of care for his fellow man. He beats a man to death, he tramples over a small girl, and he haunts the night. To look upon him is to feel repulsed. There is no warmth in Hyde. He is a sick, sick man. And yet, this form eventually takes over Jekyll, to the point where we must ask ourselves, was Hyde the true Jekyll all along. Then we have Mr. Utterson. He represents the ideal Victorian. He is loyal and boring and refuses to judge, which makes him the perfect lens for the audience to view the chaos through. And yet, his reluctance to poke too heavily into Jekyll's life is ultimately what causes his dear friend's downfall. Utterson is too respectful of the Victorian moral code. Do not pry, simply let it be. Now, if you were going to write an essay on Jekyll and Hyde, you need to analyse the language. So here's 10 quotes to get you started. Section 4, 10 key quotes. The first, man is not truly one, but truly two. The novel's core theme, that of duality, is perfectly exemplified here. We have the word man to represent all of mankind. We have the juxtaposition of one and two encapsulating the novel's central message, that we cannot continue to see man as purely good, that an evil exists within us all, and we must work each day to keep it at bay. The use of the word truly makes Stevenson's beliefs clear. This is a truth that must be acknowledged. The second, a fog roll over the city. The novel is full of pathetic fallacy. The fog represents the hidden truth, that this strange underbelly exists, that violence and chaos are just beneath the surface of this large metropolis. Using the verb rolled gives the fog a consciousness. It is spreading into each tiny corner and smothering the city in a cloud. The third, he gives a strong feeling of deformity. The descriptions of Hyde always lean upon words that make him appear less than human. He has an inherent evil that manifests itself physically. Deformity here is meant to repulse readers, to make us fear him and question him. You'll note that throughout the book, characters who see Hyde are immediately repulsed by him. He's just not very nice to stare upon. Fourth, trampled calmly over the child's body. In the opening moments of the novel, we see Hyde's callousness. This establishes his character as one who cares little for the feelings of man. Here, the verb trampled shows a violent intention. The fact that it is a child, so often a symbol of innocence in literature, adds an extra dimension to Hyde's actions. He is truly evil. And lastly, the juxtaposition of calmly and trampled shows Hyde's lack of empathy. He barely breaks a sweat as he hurts the child. Fifth, the large handsome face of Dr. Jekyll grew pale to the very lips. Now, on the other hand, Jekyll's descriptions, at least initially, tend to focus on his beauty. Here he is handsome and his face is large, contrasting with later descriptions of Hyde being small. However, even the mention of Hyde's name is enough to horrify Jekyll. He grows pale, and that word pale is repeated throughout the novel in relation to Hyde. It becomes a kind of motif. It's as though he sucks the very life out of people. Like some damned juggernaut. He doesn't only suck the life out of people, he's capable of beating out of them too. Here, Hyde is an unstoppable inhuman force, a violent whirlwind of brutality and chaos, a force beyond the realms of human imagination. The word juggernaut implies a force, a merciless and destructive force that cannot be contained. Oh God, I screamed, and oh God again and again. When people in the novel are met with this terrible force, they turn to the only entity that could possibly match the dark power of Hyde. And that, of course, is God. How interesting that even Dr. Lanyon, who says this, a man of science, in his darkest moments screamed, "Oh God." Because although science can break new ground and open new avenues of thinking, it cannot comfort the soul or provide sanctuary in our darkest moments, because it is an inherently cold force. My devil had been long caged, he came out roaring. At the end of the novel, when Jekyll speaks his truth, we see him pontificate on the idea that this devil, here metaphorically representing Hyde, has always been within him. The only thing that stopped it emerging early was repression, and yet repressing a force like this only made it grow stronger, until finally it emerges roaring. Roaring is an interesting verb here, with an animalistic connotation as well as that of rage and power. Hyde truly becomes the beast within. The spirit of hell awoke in me and raged. In this penultimate quote, things get no better once Hyde is out. Much like Pandora's box, once it has emerged, it cannot return, it cannot be hidden. Stevenson uses the word hell here intentionally. He wants you to see that this internal evil is a product of the devil, of something against Christian good. The dual meaning of the word spirit as both of the soul and an ethereal entity is again intentional. People become captured by evil and then they act accordingly. And finally, I bring the life of that unhappy Henry Jekyll to an end. Ultimately, Hyde grows too strong for Jekyll to contain. Stevenson shows that man is fated to succumb to evil if evil is allowed to grow unchecked. If we do not acknowledge our hidden desires, our hidden needs and feelings, they will ultimately take over. The fact he feels his life has been unhappy shows that Jekyll himself acknowledges the pain he has gone through. The only solution for him is death, and this is the tragic finality of his experiment. Wow, that was a lot, but what a novel. What an absolutely fantastic novel. Still so relevant today. It's a novel, quite simply, about the dangers that man faces each and every day. Society cannot shy away from its capacity for evil. For good to prevail, we must be sensible. We must want it to succeed. And we must allow people the opportunity to live their lives truly. Otherwise, we will all be doomed. A cheery thought to end with. If you enjoyed this video, firstly, subscribe to catch up with more great content that we're producing. Secondly, hit the link in the description to head over to my resources. They are our incredible bespoke study notes written just for students like yourself who are looking to get ahead. And last but not least, for the A-level students, we do run a weekly live stream with one of our excellent A-level teachers. You can find out more information by hitting the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching.